Ma'am, why is your arm in that sling?
I slipped dragging those branches after the storm.
Then please leave it to me, I'll take care of it.
I was a nurse. I know this looks bad.
It looks like you got hurt, trying too hard.
I just didn't want another neighbor calling it in.
I noticed the sling before I noticed the branches. The old woman standing in front of me had one arm tucked tight against her chest, her wrist wrapped, her sweater dusty, and her eyes fixed on the mess behind her house like she was ashamed I had seen it. Her name was Helen Whitaker, 88 years old, a retired nurse from Savannah, Georgia, and she had spent more than 40 years helping injured people get back on their feet. Now she was the one standing in the yard hurt, trying to explain why fallen limbs and brush were still scattered along the side of her home. I looked at her arm and asked, "Ma'am, why is your arm in that sling?" She took a slow breath, looked past me at the branches, and said in a weak voice, "I slipped dragging those branches after the storm." That was when the whole yard started making sense. This was not laziness. This was an elderly woman with osteoporosis, arthritis, and weak balance trying to do storm cleanup by herself because she did not want the neighbors thinking she had given up. A few limbs had come down beside the house after heavy wind, and the brush near the walkway kept getting worse. Helen said she tried to pull the smaller branches first, just a few at a time, but one caught under her foot and she fell hard enough to hurt her arm. Since then, every time she looked out the window, she saw the same pile waiting for her. She knew it looked bad. She knew someone might call it in if it stayed there too long. But hiring help meant money she did not really have after medication, doctor visits, groceries, and utilities. I told her, "Then please leave it to me, I'll take care of it." She looked down at the sling like she still wanted to argue, but she was too tired. A few minutes later she said, "I was a nurse, I know this looks bad." I told her gently, "It looks like you got hurt trying too hard." That line made her eyes soften. She admitted, "I just didn't want another neighbor calling it in." I understood that fear. It was not about one branch or one messy yard. It was about being old enough that people stop asking what happened and start assuming you stopped caring. So I started clearing the branches first, cutting the small limbs, dragging them away from the walkway, and trimming the brush back from the house. I worked slowly around the window and the side path because I knew this was still her home, not just a cleanup job. Helen stood back and watched, holding her injured arm close, her face showing relief she was trying hard not to show. By the time the path opened and the branches were stacked safely away, the yard did not look perfect. It looked manageable again. That mattered more. Helen touched the edge of her sling and said, "I used to tell patients not to overdo it." Then she gave a tired little smile and added, "I guess I forgot to listen." Sometimes a messy yard is not neglect. Sometimes it is a retired nurse, a bad fall,